You just texted someone you like. You typed a few words. You deleted them. You typed them again. You watched 3 small dots blink on the screen, waiting for a reply. Your heart beat a little faster. You never stopped to think that this is a very new behavior. Less than 20 years ago, this didn't exist at all. So how did your ancestors date when there was no message to send? The answer is stranger than you think. You assume flirting is a matter of words, of a clever line typed out and reconsidered before it's sent. But your brain doesn't see it that way. Your brain was built hundreds of thousands of years ago, at a time when writing didn't exist, and spoken language had only just begun to form. So how did people say, "I like you," before there were words for it? The anthropologist Helen Fisher spent much of her career trying to answer exactly that. She studied the brains of people in love, scanned them, and found something surprising. The rush you feel toward someone doesn't come from the language centers of the brain. It comes from the dopamine system, the primitive reward circuitry, the same circuitry humans share with prairie voles and songbirds. In other words, the part of your brain that makes you weak in the knees around someone doesn't know how to read or write. It only knows how to feel. So before words, what did people flirt with? Their bodies. Tens of thousands of years ago, a glance held a beat too long was already a message. A smile held a second longer than usual was a message too. Standing closer than necessary, brushing a hand while passing something to someone, all of it was language. Not the language of words, the language of signals. The evolutionary psychologist David Buss surveyed more than 30 different cultures around the world to understand how humans choose mates. He found something consistent everywhere he looked, from isolated tribes to modern cities. People are always searching for very specific signals in each other: health, reliability, the ability to care for offspring. But what's most interesting is how those signals get sent. Rarely through direct speech, almost always through indirect behavior. Sound familiar? That's exactly what's happening when you like someone's photo, but don't comment. When you watch their story but don't respond. When you leave a message unseen and wait 30 minutes before answering, on purpose. So you don't seem too eager. You think that's social media culture. It's actually a 100,000-year-old instinct, just wearing a new coat. Ancient people played the don't seem too eager game too. In hunter-gatherer communities, showing interest too openly was a real risk, not just an emotional one. If you pursued someone publicly and they didn't feel the same, you lost standing in the group. Your entire community might have numbered only 30 to 50 people. There was nowhere to hide after a failed advance. Everyone knew everyone, so courtship signals had to stay ambiguous, always deniable. A glance could be explained away as coincidence. So could a message left unread. The evolutionary psychologist Robin Dunbar, known for his research on how many social relationships humans can realistically maintain, points out that grooming, touching another individual's hair or skin, is the oldest bonding behavior among primates. Before language, apes used grooming to build trust with one another. As human groups grew too large to groom every individual by hand, we developed a substitute, lighter and faster. We call it small talk. You're doing exactly that every time you exchange messages about nothing important. About the weather, about a movie you just watched, about what to eat tonight. You assume those messages are meaningless. Your brain doesn't process them that way. Every exchange, every fast reply, every conversation that runs longer than expected releases a small amount of oxytocin in your body. That's the bonding chemical, the same chemical that once kept your ancestors sitting for hours grooming each other by the fire. Except now, the fire has become a phone screen. But there's a major difference between ancient dating and modern dating, and it comes down to speed. In a small hunter-gatherer band, you didn't have thousands of options. You might have had only a few dozen people of a suitable age in your entire known world. Choosing a partner wasn't like scrolling through a list. It was closer to watching a small group of people closely over years. The evolutionary anthropologist Sarah Blaffer-Hrdy has studied extensively how primates, including humans, form long-term bonds. She argues that humans evolved as cooperative breeders, meaning raising a child was never something one person could do alone. That means choosing a partner was never just about a fleeting feeling. It was a decision tied to survival, weighed slowly over time by watching who could be trusted, who would stay when right or left in half a second is a shock to your brain system. Your brain wasn't built to judge a person from 4 photos and a short caption. It was built to observe how someone treats others in the group, how they share food, how they react when danger appears. Those signals take time to surface. They don't compress into a square photo. That might be why, even though dating technology has completely changed how people meet, the anxiety of waiting for a reply feels exactly the same as it did tens of thousands of years ago, because the part of your brain that handles that waiting hasn't evolved fast enough to keep up with the phone in your hand. Helen Fisher found something else, maybe the strangest finding of all. She compared the brain activity of someone deeply in love to the brain activity of someone in the grip of addiction. The same regions light up. The same uncontrollable craving appears. When you keep unlocking your phone to check if they've replied yet, you're not behaving strangely. You're behaving exactly like a creature whose bonding mechanism existed long before humans learned to control fire. Ancient people didn't have a phone to check obsessively, but they had a version of the same behavior. They found excuses to walk past the place where the person they liked was likely to be. They lingered longer than necessary somewhere they might run into them. They asked others in the group whether that person had mentioned them at all. That's the ancient version of asking your best friend to help decode a text message. Nothing about the behavior is new. Only the tool is. And maybe the most interesting part isn't the similarity. It's a different question entirely. If the anxious flutter of waiting for a message has existed for hundreds of thousands of years, if your ancestors once stood by a fire waiting for a glance to be returned, then has technology really created a new way of loving? Or is it simply replaying a very old one, just faster and louder? Researchers are still debating this. Some argue social media has distorted our natural courtship instincts, making people accustomed to endless choice and less capable of commitment. Others, including Fisher herself, argue that technology is just a new shell wrapped around an ancient biological system, one that hasn't changed since humans lived in caves. One thing seems nearly certain: whether you're texting, watching those 3 dots blink, or calculating how long to wait before replying so you don't seem too eager, you're running a very old piece of code inside your body. Code written before writing existed, before spoken language existed, from a time when reading another person meant nothing more than a glance and the distance between 2 bodies. So the next time you pick up your phone and feel your heart race over an unanswered message, remember that you're not doing anything particularly modern. You're doing the oldest thing humans have ever known how to do.